My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm 34 years old. I manage logistics for a mid-size packaging company, which means I spend most of my professional life solving problems that shouldn't exist by Thursday, but do. I'm decent at it. I'm patient. I think carefully before I speak, which people sometimes mistake for shyness and other times mistake for arrogance. And I've stopped trying to correct either interpretation. She sat on my lap because there was nowhere else to go. That's the honest version. The bar was overcrowded. The booth was full. And Vivian Cole, who is 44 years old, and my best friend's mother, and the last person on earth I should have spent the next hour thinking about, looked at the one available square foot of space, looked at me, and made a practical decision. A coat went over her shoulders. A drink appeared in her hand, and she settled in like a woman who had made her peace with the situation. The seat opened 15 minutes later. She never moved. I didn't say anything. I told myself it was because the music was loud. That was not why. Owen Cole has been my best friend since we were 22, and both failed the same professional certification exam on the same Tuesday, and went for drinks that lasted until last call. We have been recovering from that Tuesday together ever since. He is generous and loud and occasionally chaotic, and he has thrown exactly one birthday party per year for the last decade, each one somehow more logistically complex than the last. This year he rented out the back section of a bar called Hendrix, invited 40 people, and forgot to account for the fact that 40 people in their coats cannot fit into a space designed for 22. By 9 o'clock, the booth situation had become adversarial. By 9:30, I had given up my chair once, found a corner of a bench, and was on my second drink trying to remember why I enjoyed birthday parties. Vivian had arrived late. She always did. Not from disorganization, but from the particular confidence of someone who knows the party doesn't start until they're in it. She came in wearing a dark green blouse and the expression of a woman taking quiet inventory of a room, and Owen had waved her over with the enthusiasm of a man who had inherited exactly her cheekbones and none of her composure. I had known Vivian for 12 years. She was sharp and economical with her words. She read constantly, always something with a spine creased from use, never something fashionable. She had raised Owen mostly alone after his father left when Owen was 9, which she mentioned exactly once in all the time I had known her, and did not seem to want discussed. She laughed at dry things. She asked specific questions. She made excellent coffee and the particular kind of small talk that didn't feel small. I told myself I thought of her as Owen's mother. I had been telling myself this for approximately 4 years. I was not very convincing. The overcrowding became critical around 9:45. The group in our booth had expanded from 7 to 11 somehow, with Owen at the far end loudly adjudicating a disagreement about a sports team he didn't follow, and the remaining seat had collapsed into a shared territory, claimed by elbows and handbags. Vivian appeared at the edge of our booth with a drink and the expression of a woman doing quiet arithmetic. There was the booth. There was the available square foot beside me. There was me. She tilted her head very slightly. I slid over what little I could. She put her coat on my lap first then, with a composure that I will always associate with green fabric and the smell of something warm and faintly citrus. Sat down on top of it. Straight-backed. Drink held at a careful angle, like a woman on a train who had simply chosen the available seat. "This is practical," she said. "Completely," I said. She nodded once. We did not discuss it further. The coat was the object between us. It was doing a great deal of work. I became extraordinarily aware of it. Around us, Owen was explaining something at volume. Across the table, someone was laughing. A speaker somewhere overhead was playing something with bass frequencies that made the glasses vibrate. I was aware of all of this the way you are aware of weather when you're indoors. Present information, not primary information. The primary information was Vivian Cole, who smelled faintly of citrus and something warmer underneath it, and whose weight settled against me with the matter-of-fact quality of someone who had decided this was simply what the evening required. I flagged down the bar staff for another drink. Vivian asked for the same. The server took the order without any particular reaction, which I appreciated, because my own reactions were apparently not running through my filtering system at normal speed. 15 minutes in, a seat opened 2 tables down. Clear as anything. Wood chair, unclaimed, visible to anyone paying attention. I noticed it. I said nothing. I gave her no exit. I told myself she hadn't seen it. She had definitely seen it. She stayed where she was and asked me how work was going, and I answered her, and the seat filled up again 5 minutes later, and that was that. The thing about Vivian was the specific quality of her attention. When she talked to you, she talked to you. Not the room, not the idea of you, not whatever version of you was easiest to address. She asked the kind of questions that required you to actually think, what do you want the next 2 years to look like? Not what do you do for work? What bothers you about that? Not isn't that interesting? I had noticed this for years. I had put it in a category labeled she is like this with everyone and closed the drawer. That category was not holding up well. We talked for nearly an hour in the booth. Around us the party metabolized. Owen cut the cake. Someone attempted a toast. A small disagreement about where to get food afterward was resolved badly. Vivian and I talked about a novel she was reading that I'd read 3 years ago. About whether logistics as a field attracted people who needed control, or people who were afraid of chaos. She thought the distinction mattered. I said I wasn't sure it did. She said, "That's interesting, what makes you say that?" And I told her. And she looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite name and said quietly, "You're easy to talk to, Daniel. I keep forgetting that about you." I didn't know what to do with that sentence. So I said, "You're not exactly difficult." She laughed once. It came out slightly wrong, not uncomfortable, just unguarded, like a laugh that arrived before she decided to let it. Something about that small displacement bothered me more than it should have. I filed that away in the wrong drawer entirely. The party started to break apart around midnight. Coats were retrieved. Goodbyes were exchanged. Owen began the complicated process of settling the bar tab, which he always managed to make take 30 minutes. People filtered out in groups until our booth held just a few of us. Owen still at the far end, 2 of his work friends halfway through a conversation that seemed like it might last another hour, and me and Vivian, who had shifted to the actual bench seat when space opened up, sitting close, because the booth still held other people, and there was nowhere else to reasonably be. She was looking at her drink. She had her coat in her lap now. She had stopped talking, and she had gone quiet in the particular way that felt like something adjacent to thinking. I had learned, in 12 years, that Vivian's silences were not empty. She was a woman who went quiet when something was taking up space that she hadn't yet decided what to do with. I said nothing. I was doing my own version of the same thing. After a while, she said, without looking at me, "I almost didn't come tonight." "Owen would have been devastated," I said. "He would have recovered," she said. "He always does. He got that from me." A brief pause. "I almost didn't come because I knew you'd be here." I set my glass down. "That's an interesting thing to say," I said carefully. "I know." She still wasn't looking at me. Her fingers were tight around her glass, tightened once, then deliberately loosened. I've been trying to decide whether to say it for approximately 4 months. The noise of the bar was still happening. Someone across the room was laughing. The speaker overhead was playing something soft now, understated, like the room had made a decision without consulting anyone. I said, "You don't have to keep going if you don't want to." She turned and looked at me then, and her expression was the thing I won't forget. Not dramatic, not overwhelmed, just clear. The look of someone who had decided that something they'd been carrying was heavier than it needed to be. "I have had exactly one conversation in the last 18 months that I looked forward to afterward," she said. "That I actually looked forward to because of the conversation, not the company in general, and it was with you. That bothered me for a while." "Because I'm Owen's friend," I said. "Because you're Owen's friend," she confirmed. "Among other things." I looked at her. I thought about 4 months, and a seat that opened and was not taken, and 12 years of a drawer I had never let myself open all the way. "Vivian," I said, "I've been easy to talk to around you specifically for about 4 years. She held my gaze for 1 full second longer than felt safe. "I know," she said. I noticed. The silence that followed was not uncomfortable. It was the particular silence of 2 people who have just said something true and are giving it room to exist. I have poor survival instincts, it turns out, around women who read with the spines broken and ask questions that require actual answers. I said, "This is probably complicated." "Most things worth anything are," she said. Owen, she said, is 34 years old. He is not 11. He gets a conversation, not a permission slip. She paused. "But that's a conversation for later. I'm not asking you to solve anything tonight, Daniel. I'm just telling you that I stayed on your lap for 40 minutes when there was a perfectly good seat 2 tables over." I laughed. It came out more honestly than I expected. "I saw it," I said. "I know you saw it," she said. I didn't say anything. "No," she said. "You didn't." And she smiled. Small, specific, the kind that arrived without announcement. I appreciated that. I reached across the bench and put my hand over hers, once, just briefly. She looked down at it, then back up at me. "We should probably get Owen," I said. "Probably," she agreed. Neither of us moved for another moment. Then she laughed quietly, squeezed my hand once and stood up, and we went to find Owen, and he was still arguing about the tab. And the night ended, as nights do, with coats and cold air, and the specific anti-climax of a car park after something significant has already happened. That conversation with Owen came 2 weeks later. It took about 20 minutes. Owen said, and I will remember this exactly because it was the most Owen thing he has ever said, "Daniel, I've watched you try not to look at her for literally years. It's been painful for everyone. Please just go on a date." He then gave me her number as though this was information I did not have, which it was, and poured us both a drink, and we watched something on television that neither of us paid attention to. The date happened on a Wednesday. We went for dinner at a place she knew that served food slowly and made good wine recommendations. We talked for 3 hours. We split the bill. She drove. She stopped at a corner 2 streets from my building and turned to say something, and I kissed her, and she laughed against my mouth, quietly, surprised at herself, and said, "I was going to say good night." "I know," I said. "This is better," she said. A year later, she moved her books into the flat in stages, which took 4 trips and 1 significant argument about shelf organization, which we resolved by agreeing I was wrong. Her copy of the novel she'd been reading that night at Hendrix sits on the 2nd shelf. The spine is completely destroyed now. She reads everything that way. 2 years after that, someone at a dinner party asked how we met. She told them we met through Owen. I told them that was true, but incomplete. She looked at me over her wine glass with a particular expression that means you are going to make this a story, aren't you? I told them there was a bar and a birthday party and a woman who sat on my lap because the booth was full and a seat that opened up and was not taken. And that I didn't say anything and she didn't say anything, and some things get said later when the room is quieter. She was looking at the table when I finished. I could see she was trying not to smile and losing. "He's not wrong," she said. And that was that. What would you have done if someone stayed in your lap long after the reason was gone, and neither of you mentioned it? And have you ever known, somewhere you couldn't quite name, that a person was going to matter to you before you'd let yourself admit it? Tell me your story in the comments. If this one landed for you, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.